There comes a moment in life, usually somewhere between an unpaid parking fine and an existential crisis, when you stop and ask, how the hell did I get here? Maybe you just got dumped via text, maybe your job just got restructured in a way that suspiciously resembles being fired. Maybe your dog ran away and even he looked relieved to be free. Whatever it is, it's messy, humiliating, and definitely not going in your highlight reel. And yet, a tiny voice inside whispers something completely unhinged. What if this is actually good for me? Not good like kale or taxes, but good in the this might ruin my life now, save it later kind of way. You know, like how getting food poisoning once makes you read expiration dates forever, or how your high school heartbreak taught you never to date boys with acoustic guitars. We don't like discomfort. It's sticky and awkward and never matches our Pinterest boards. But discomfort is usually the first sign that something is shifting. That maybe, just maybe, your life is about to get weirdly, chaotically better. So this video isn't about pretending everything happens for a reason. Some things just happen because people are dumb. It's about finding the hilarious, hopeful, and occasionally horrifying ways that disaster can secretly be the best plot twist we never asked for. So grab your emotional support snack. We're diving headfirst into the glorious dumpster fire of personal growth. These are the 10 reasons why that thing you swore you'd never survive might just be the best thing that ever happened to you. And don't worry, if you're currently in the middle of your own personal hell, you're not alone. I brought snacks. Pain means you actually cared. Let's get this out of the way. Pain sucks. No one's out here romanticising heartbreak while ugly crying in the shower like a discount rom-com lead. But here's the sneaky thing about pain. It means something mattered. You don't mourn losing a job you hated unless it gave you purpose. You don't cry over a breakup unless there was something real there. You don't rage text your ex unless you very much still care. Or your horoscope told you to be bold in communication. Pain is like the universe poking you and saying, hey, this mattered. You were alive for this. It's a weird kind of compliment, if you think about it. It means you were invested. You weren't numb. You weren't coasting. You were all in, baby. Of course, that's cold comfort when you're 3 hours deep into a sad playlist titled, It's Fine, I'm Fine. But think of it this way. The deeper the pain, the deeper the connection. And that connection doesn't vanish. It just gets reshaped. We live in a world that's obsessed with detachment. Don't get too attached. Don't catch feelings. Don't let them in. But pain is a rebel. It says, I cared deeply, and I'm not ashamed of that. It's not a weakness. It's proof you're not a sociopath. So the next time you find yourself hurting, remember, this is your receipt. Proof you showed up, you participated, you gave a damn. And even if it ended, that doesn't mean it was pointless. Pain doesn't mean failure, it means you're human. Also, pro tip, cry in the shower. It's efficient, no one can tell, and you come out emotionally and physically clean. Win-win. Stillness is where the magic happens. You ever been forced to stop? Like, really stop? Like your phone's dead, Netflix crashed, and even your dog is ignoring you. Levels of still. It's terrifying. We're trained to keep moving. Hustle culture told us rest is for the weak. Grind harder, sleep when you're dead. Blah, blah, burnout. So when life body slams you into stillness, whether it's a breakup, burnout, or suspiciously specific injury from light yoga, you panic. But stillness isn't the enemy. It's the reset button you didn't know you needed. In stillness, things get quiet enough for you to hear yourself think. And those thoughts, they're weird. They'll be like, do I even like this job? Am I happy or just busy? Why did I ever cut my own bangs in 2021? Stillness gives you the space to ask better questions, to confront things you've been running from since forever. And yeah, sometimes that leads to breakdowns, but breakdowns are just breakthroughs wearing a hoodie and no makeup. Stillness is where the big stuff happens. Healing, clarity, wild ideas like starting a side hustle or learning to make sourdough, or realising you've been dating someone who calls women females. You don't grow because everything is perfect. You grow because you were forced to stop long enough to see what wasn't working. So if life has slowed you down against your will, maybe you're not stuck. Maybe you're finally still enough to hear what your gut's been trying to say. Also naps. Stillness is great for naps, and naps are healing. Rock bottom builds a basement. You think you've hit the bottom, but then bottom sends a friend, and their friend has a shovel. Welcome to the home renovation show called Your Life, where the demolition phase is loud, dusty, and feels like the end. But guess what? Every HGTV host knows you can't build something better without knocking a few walls down first. Rock Bottom has terrible Yelp reviews, but it's got one thing going for it. It clears the stage. When you lose the job, the person, the sense of control, you're left with the only thing that ever really mattered. You. No pretense, no title, no filter, just you, your resilience, and maybe some stale snacks. And here's the weird plot twist. You start building a new identity, a new boundary, a new dream you wouldn't have dared considered before. Because when you've got nothing to lose, suddenly everything is worth trying for. You apply for the job you never thought you were qualified for. You start that weird pottery side hustle. You finally admit that you hate accounting and love teaching Zumba. Rock bottom doesn't feel empowering, but it gives you permission. Permission to start over, to make different choices, to stop performing and start living. It's not glamorous, it's not Instagrammable, but it's real. And real is where the good stuff grows. So yeah, being face down in the dirt is humbling. But you know what lives in the dirt? Roots. And roots are where everything begins. Rock bottom sucks, but it might just be the foundation of the best version of you. Also, you can't fall off the floor. That's physics. The plot twist you didn't ask for, but kinda needed. You ever look back at your life and go, wow, that completely derailed everything, and thank God it did. Plot twists don't ask for permission. They just burst in like a raccoon through a dog door, chaotic, uninvited, and ready to mess up your plans. And yet, so many of us later say, that awful thing, best thing that ever happened to me. It's wild, because sometimes the path you were on needed a good sabotage. Sometimes the 5-year plan was actually a 5-year trap. Sometimes life's like, sweetie, no, and yeets you onto a new path with nothing but confusion and maybe a bottle of wine. The dream job turns toxic. The person you swore was the one turns into a walking red flag. The apartment floods, the car breaks down, the pet snake escapes. It feels like the universe is throwing hands. But plot twists shake you awake. They reroute you towards something that fits better, usually after you've sobbed into a pizza box. These detours, they're where the character arc begins. They're the reason people say stuff like, I never would have become a wildlife photographer in Tasmania if I hadn't gotten fired from my job at a tax firm. And yeah, that sounds made up, but real life is like that. So the next time your life swerves, consider this. Maybe the universe isn't punishing you. Maybe it's editing your story. And sure, the edit is messy, but messy stories are the best ones. Ask any screenwriter. Plot twists rarely feel good in the moment, but they make way better stories than everything went according to plan. Also, if nothing ever goes wrong, you never get a montage. You become the main character. When everything else falls apart, suddenly, bam, you're the protagonist. Before, you were a side character in your own life. You showed up on time, paid bills, and responded to texts with, haha, sounds good. You followed the script. But Crisis burns the script and hands you a pen. Now you've got to make choices. Real ones. Do I stay or go? Do I keep pretending or finally be honest? Do I cut my own hair or just let the chaos take over? It's terrifying, but it's also wildly empowering. Being the main character doesn't mean life suddenly gets easier. It means you stop waiting to be rescued and realise, oh no, it's me. I'm the one who has to do the thing. Cue the panic, and then the growth. You start narrating your life like you're an indie movie. You walk home in the rain thinking, this is my turning point. You change your ringtone, you delete the contacts, you say no. You say yes. You become more you. You stop living for the approval of people who wouldn't notice if you vanished from their group chat. You get bold. You wear the weird jacket. You start therapy. You adopt a cat that only responds to jazz music. The pain is still there, sure, but it's got company now. Agency, curiosity, maybe even some hope. You realise that being the main character doesn't mean you always win. It means you keep showing up even when the plot makes no sense. It means you get to grow, mess up, laugh, cry, and try again. Also, main characters never peak in season 1, so keep going. You find the people who actually care. Nothing filters your contact list like a crisis. The moment life falls apart, a beautiful thing happens. The fake friends fade away, the real ones lean in. Suddenly, you know exactly who's showing up with snacks, who's sending memes at 2 a.m, and who's pretending they didn't see your 7-paragraph text. And while that hurts, wow, does it hurt. It's also liberating. You stop wasting energy on people who only liked the you that was thriving. You start treasuring the ones who see the mess, the breakdown, the rambling voice notes, and love you anyway. You learn to spot the difference between someone who checks in because they care and someone who checks in because they're nosy. You begin to understand that some people were just characters in your story arc, not meant for the sequel. And then there's the surprise MVPs. The people you didn't expect. Co-workers, cousins, that girl from high school who replies to all your stories with a love heart. They appear. They ask if you've eaten. They remind you of your worth when you forget. It's wild how crises expose emotional infrastructure. Who's solid, who's duct taped together, who disappears faster than your motivation at 4 p.m. on a Friday. You might feel lonelier during hard times, but the relationships that remain, they're gold. They're quiet, consistent, deeply human. They don't require performance, just presence. And once you've experienced that kind of raw, unconditional support, you stop settling for less. So if your social circle's looking smaller these days, good. That means it's getting stronger. Also, if someone brings you food when you're crying, they're family now. No questions asked. You realise you're actually kind of resilient. Before everything went sideways, you probably thought you couldn't handle much. You cried when the cafe ran out of oat milk. You panicked if someone replied with K. You considered a nervous breakdown every time your laptop made a weird noise. But then it happened. The breakup, the breakdown, the big life oh no, and you didn't die. You didn't dissolve. You didn't spontaneously combust. You woke up the next day, maybe in yesterday's clothes, but still. Turns out you're made of stronger stuff than you thought. We don't discover our resilience by reading motivational quotes in cursive font. We discover it by surviving things we swore would ruin us. And it's always shocking, like, oh, I can actually do hard things. Oh, I don't need them to be okay. Oh, I'm not as fragile as my group chat thought. You start trusting yourself more. You become less scared of feelings, of failure, of things not going according to plan. You start seeing obstacles less as the end and more like the annoying tutorial level before something cool happens. And sure, you still cry over dumb stuff. You still scream into pillows. You still lose it when you stub your toe. But now you know, none of those things mean you're weak. They mean you're human. And being human is messy, hilarious, and weirdly powerful. So yeah, you might have been knocked down, but look at you now, standing, wobbly, but standing, still here, still fighting, still showing up. That's resilience. Not perfection, not toxic positivity, just showing up again. Also, if you've cried in public and lived to tell the tale, you're invincible. You get to redefine what success means. Once upon a time, success meant checking boxes. Career, relationship, house, retirement plan with a quirky name, bonus points if you had matching towels. But then life derailed. You lost the job, the relationship exploded, the retirement plan became guess I'll eat noodles until I'm 80, and suddenly all those checkboxes felt kind of fake. Here's the thing about catastrophe. It breaks the illusion. You stop chasing someone else's idea of success and start asking what actually matters to you. Maybe you don't want a 6-figure salary if it comes with a side of soul death. Maybe love isn't about finding the one, but about finding people who make your nervous system calm. Maybe happiness isn't tied to status or stuff, but to tiny things like sunlight or coffee or finally unfollowing that influencer who makes you feel like a potato. When everything falls apart, your priorities get real fast. Realize you'd rather be content than impressive, peaceful than productive, loved than liked. You start measuring success in laughter, in freedom, in how often you feel like yourself. You choose slow mornings over big promotions, honest conversations over filtered selfies, inner peace over outer approval. And once that shift happens, you can't unsee it. You look around and go, wait, this is success, me, alive, weird, growing, healing, this is the life. It's not always shiny, but it's yours, and that's what makes it beautiful. Also, matching towels are overrated. Use whatever's clean, you're doing amazing. You find new joy in small things. After a meltdown, you notice weird things, like how toast tastes better when someone else makes it, or how nice the air smells after rain, or how your dog looks at you like you're not a complete disaster. Crisis has this strange side effect. It rewires your brain to appreciate the tiny stuff. Why? Because the big stuff got nuked. You're not jetting off to Paris or achieving your 5-year plan. You're eating cereal for dinner and celebrating when you go a whole day without crying. But weirdly, those moments hit harder. They feel real. You laugh at memes harder, you tear up at sunsets, you listen to sad songs and really feel the lyrics, even the cringy ones. You pet dogs like it's a religious experience, you get excited about socks that don't slide down your heels. It's not that you become a Zen monk, it's that you finally notice the things that were always there, waiting to be loved. You stop needing big milestones to feel worthy, you start measuring life in weird units. I didn't spiral today. I made soup and it didn't suck. I said no without explaining myself. And slowly, the small joys pile up. They form a foundation. They remind you that happiness doesn't need to be earned, it can just exist. Joy becomes less about achievement and more about awareness. Less about proving, more about being. And also, the first cup of coffee after emotional breakdown, 10 out of 10 would recommend. You become the person you are meant to be. Here's the truth no one tells you when you're sobbing into your laundry pile. This version of you, the one after the mess, is closer to your true self than the version who had it together. Before the crisis, you were polished, agreeable, maybe even a little bit fake. You said yes when you meant hell no. You shrank yourself to fit into someone else's comfort zone. You were clothes that didn't feel like you and laughed at jokes that weren't funny. But breakdowns strip away the performance. They take the masks, the people-pleasing, the illusions of control, and toss them straight into the bin. You're left with you, Raw, messy, authentic you. At first, that feels like a downgrade, but then something shifts. You start speaking up. You start dressing how you want. You discover you actually love early mornings and hate small talk. You begin honouring what you need instead of what looks good on Instagram. You stop trying to be everyone's cup of tea and realise you'd rather be someone's weird favourite mug. The person who rises from rock bottom is someone you'll actually like, someone you fought for, someone who chose healing, growth, and occasionally revenge playlists. You become someone who can survive heartbreak, disappointments, existential crises, and still find something to laugh about. You become someone who makes different choices, not because you're bitter, but because you're awake. And honestly, that's what life is about. Not staying the same, but becoming. Becoming wiser, kinder, stronger, sillier. Becoming a little less afraid to be seen. Because when you've been through it, you stop caring about being impressive. You just want to be real. And real beats perfect every single time. The best thing that ever happened. Seriously? So, how can this be the best thing that's ever happened to me? Short answer, because it made you, you. Long answer, because everything that broke you down also broke you open. Because pain taught you who you are, what you want, what you'll never tolerate again. Because every time you thought you were done, you weren't. You got back up, maybe slowly, maybe limping, but you rose. And along the way, you laughed at wildly inappropriate memes, cried at 3 AM to a playlist called Meltdown Bops, and discovered a surprising love for chamomile tea. You called your mum, you blocked your ex, you became the kind of person who knows how to comfort others because you finally learned how to comfort yourself. Was it fun? No. Was it cinematic? Honestly, yeah. Would you choose to go through it again? Not unless you've completely lost the plot. But would you trade who you are now to go back to who you were before? Didn't think so. This wasn't the plan. It never is. But it might be better than the plan. It might be realer, deeper, and way more interesting. And if you're still in the middle of the mess, don't worry. The plot twist hasn't revealed itself yet. One day you'll look back and say, that sucked, but it changed everything. And maybe, just maybe, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Or at least, the best thing that ever happened to me after I stopped crying on the bathroom floor. Cue credits, roll soundtrack. Freeze frame on you. Messy, brilliant, and still standing. You're the main character now, and the story's just getting good.